We need to find this place or we'll be late.
Make a left on Astrology Avenue. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant right. It should be right here. 4th Streetway. Oh, turn.
It looks like Renee. Yay, we're on time. The James and Kellee Show.
Great, let's start the show.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kellee White. I'm a spiritual medium and psychotherapist. And you notice James Van Prague is not here today because he's in Europe. But I have my special dear friend co-hosting with me, Dr. Shirley Impellizzeri. Hi, Shirley.
Hi, Kel. I'm so happy to be with you again and to be with everybody.
Me too.
Oh,
Me
my
too.
God.
Welcome, Shirley.
So
what
fun.
a lot of people don't know is that Shirley and I started both sides now maybe 10 years ago. I think it was like 10 years ago, maybe even longer.
Oh,
sure. It's been a while.
We were pretty, at 2 years old, we were pretty entrepreneur.
pretty much busy back in the day.
Exactly. Oh my God.
That was so much fun. And just a brief background, Shirley has her PhD from UCLA, and she specializes in somatic therapy, which we'll talk about, and also in attachment theory, which is really great. And so we'll be taking a lot of your questions on trauma.
Yeah.
She totally specializes in trauma. And so we'll talk about things from a spiritual perspective and a psychological perspective here.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to say this, that Shirley was my mother's psych assistant. My mother was a psychologist, and Shirley was I was your psych assistant. I was your intern.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically what that means is to become a therapist, you have to do 3,000 hours under someone else's license as part of your training. So I did it under Kelly's mom, and then Kelly did it under my license.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so it stayed in the family.
Stayed in the family. Oh my gosh. Well, let's say hi to everybody. Hi, Bernadette. Hi, Judy. Hi, Mimi. Hi, Angel. Hi, Renee. She says hi to you too, Dr. Shirley.
Oh, hi.
Hello. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Ruth. I will be talking about some thoughts astrologically of what's going on in the Middle East right now. My heart is completely broken and shattered. And I've been anxious all day, to be honest. We'll just start there. Hi, Kimberly. Hi, Angel. Hi, Sue. Sue says, thanks for your suggestions for getting through this week and these times. They're really rough times. And look at this, Shirley. Enthusiastic impressionist Jennifer Penn is from Dongara, West Australia.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Wow.
Something.
Welcome, Australia, to the show.
Yay. And hi, Elizabeth Preston. She says hi to you too. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Jennifer and Eric. And Vicky. Hi, Vicky. Oh, Vicky was so excited that you were going to be on today, Shirley.
Aww,
and hey, Lori
wonderful.
Leclerc. Hi, everybody. Everybody loves to see us together again.
Yay. I know.
We're going to teach a class again because it's so much fun with you.
We will. I know. I have so much fun with you too.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think what I'll do, Shirley, if you don't mind, I'll get into the astrology of what's going on now.
Please,
and then we'll start taking some questions and going through a lot of different things. But as
Tell
everybody
us about this clusterfuck, Kel.
Oh, it's so bad, Cheryl. It's
God.
so bad. I don't know if you heard my report last week. I did an astrological report last week, and James called me on Saturday, and he goes, well, you pretty much called it. I said, yeah, I'm sorry, I did.
It's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. And these are really, as I said about October, these astrological aspects are really rough. They're just extremely rough. But there's a lot I want to talk about, but last week I talked about Mars conjunction with Ketu, and it's in Libra in Vedic astrology. And Mars is the planet of war, and Ketu is the south node, and they call it the dragon's tail. And those are both triggers. Mars is a trigger, and Ketu is a trigger. And this trigger lasts through the end of October, till about the 30th of October. Okay. So this is not going to get better. This is going to escalate. So Ketu, the south node, which is karma, indicates like cutting off relationships. It will do anything to be free. It will do anything. It doesn't care about emotion. I mean, about reality. It'll just go into emotions. There's just no thinking. There's no thinking brain, Shirley. You know, we talk about a thinking brain. There's no thinking brain with K2. It is straight emotions.
Wow.
And so because of this, we're going to see an increase in terrorists, an increase in weapons. And it's going to be it's a radical time right now. Now, on top of that, with the Mars and K2, and again, Mars is a trigger. Mars pulls a gun on somebody, and so does K2. So neither of them back down.
Wow.
Good point here. And Rahu, which is the north node, is still in Gandanta, which means it's out of control. And that also lasts to the end of the year. And then today and tomorrow, October 8th and 9th, tomorrow's the 9th. Oh, today's the 9th. What am I saying? Today's the 9th. Mars squares Pluto. And again, Mars, the planet of war, squares off with Pluto. Pluto is, we call him the Lord of the underworld. And it is just transformative energies. Okay. It's like releases a lot of energy, a lot of intensity, which is what we're feeling today. You can actually feel it, right? Now, I mean, if we look at it for personal growth, there'll be a lot of personal growth that comes through the next few weeks, I believe. And then on top of this, because this is not enough, Cheryl.
Oh, God. But there's more.
But there's more. October 10th. Oh, yeah, that's tomorrow. Pluto, again, Pluto is the underworld. It's death and it's destruction. And Pluto transit directs it. So it's been retrograde, which means it goes direct. And in Vedic astrology, it's in Capricorn. And when this goes direct, it can bring earthquakes, actually. It can bring violence, power struggles, conflicts. So it's all very intense. Now, I can say, if you can harness this energy to empower yourself, you will make lasting positive changes in your life.
Wow.
Okay? So if you can grab a hold of that energy, it would be extraordinary.
Sounds like it's an energy that can help set boundaries.
Excellent for that. I love that you said that. Yes.
Boundaries, are very difficult for some people, and you need kind of that kind of warlike energy, not because you're setting a boundary in a mean way. I mean, boundaries can be set easily by not answering the phone when you don't feel like talking to someone who takes your energy. So it's an excellent time for that, because on top of that, because Shirley, that is just not enough. On October 14th, we have the solar eclipse. And this eclipse is fascinating. And it's in Virgo in Vedic astrology. Virgo is health, has a lot to do with health, the health of ourselves, the health of the planet, the health, mental health of people. It has a lot to do with that. And so because of this eclipse, and they call this the ring of fire, that an eclipse is like a supercharged new moon. And in a new moon, normally in a new moon, we set our intentions and plant our seeds for the new moon. Not this time, okay? This is not where we do anything that we set anything up for, because this eclipse is great to stay in, meditate, do inner work. Okay.
And it's a really especially rich opportunity to connect with spirit, because the veil is very thin. Okay. But it is not the day to, let's see, sign up for a new project, or to sign a contract, or to make a deal. It's not a time for that. So this is not where you'd say, I think I'm going to start a project. If you can not do it, it's not a good time. It's the 14th.
The 14th. Okay.
Yeah, it's the 14th. Now, I want to talk about this eclipse just a little much before we get into everything else, because this is what's called the Great American Eclipse. And you might think, why is it called the Great American Eclipse? Because it goes through North America, the United States, Central America, and South America. So let's just look at, Renee, would you put up there? I copied a little map to show everybody where this eclipse in the United States, where it goes through. And you might think, I never heard of these places like Medford. or Lovelock or whatever these places. Albuquerque is in New Mexico. But what really got my attention, and this is where the eclipse through the United States, Roswell, New Mexico. Shirley, do you know what Roswell, New Mexico is famous for?
I sure do. Yep. Isn't that the alien
Yes.
alien part of the United States?
It is the alien part of the United States, alien to us. But I thought how fascinating.
Where my people are from.
Where your people are from. Certainly mine too.
Yeah.
So isn't that fascinating? It makes me have to believe that maybe aliens will rescue us from this crazy time that we're going on.
But it's a topic that is getting a lot of energy now.
Yeah.
Because of the government admitting, and how can we really believe that we're the only planet in all of the solar systems that has life?
Right. It doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Thanks, Renee. So I thought that was really interesting because
that is fascinating.
It's going to go through there. And then at the very end, we have a lunar eclipse on October 28th, and I'll talk about that as we get closer. But Saturn, the last thing I want to talk about is that Saturn goes direct finally on November 3rd and 4th. And when Saturn, it's such a slow moving planet, when it goes direct, it stands still for 2 or 3 days. It'll stand still. And that's going to be huge because that is a trigger point and that can create another event. And I'm talking about November 3rd and 4th.
Oh, wow.
So Saturn is actually hitting at the U.S. moon, United States moon, when it stations. And that's a very radical time. So what I'm saying, if I need to be even clearer, is this next few weeks are very, radical.
Wow.
I feel that everybody has to, remain as calm as you can and be as kind to one another as possible. Wow. And speaking of being kind to one another.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I don't know if you're welcome.
Yeah, well,
I have no idea.
You're just reporting what's happening. You're not making it happen. So
exactly.
Just the messenger. Yeah.
Just the messenger. I'm a Virgo messenger. What can I say?
Yeah.
I do want to though. First of all, I want to talk about why you are where you are. But even before we go there, let me just show this book. Shirley and I have a good friend named Larry Klimas, and I love Larry. And Larry wrote a book. Larry is the other sax player with Neil Diamond. And is he the funnest guy?
Oh my
God,
he's so sweet. He and his wife, they're both the sweetest people.
Sweetest guy ever. Yeah. And I love Brenda. Really wonderful couple. And Larry is from the south side of Chicago, and he is the greatest storyteller. And he wrote a book, everybody.
Yay!
And this is called From the South Side. From the South Side. And even Rolling Stones gave it a great review. Rolling Stone magazine gave it a great review.
Wonderful.
It's the true story of the first white jazz rock band of the Motown Records label. I mean, how funny is that? And his stories are epic. They're epic stories.
That's great.
If everybody gets a chance, and Renee will post this link because I'm so excited to be reading it. It's so fun.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Tell everybody where you are and what your exciting news is.
Okay. Well, I'm in New York and it's freezing here. Of course, not to many because I guess it's still mild, but LA was in the 90s. Because my partner is producing a Broadway musical, off-Broadway musical.
She's a wonderful partner. She's just terrific.
Yeah. So he is.
And what's the name of the Broadway musical?
It's called Emergence. And it is so interesting. It's like, this guy created it. His name is Pat Olson, and he was a science textbook publisher for many, many, many years. And so he used to interview scientists and try to get what they had to say, like string theory and quantum physics and all that, in a way that even a third grader can understand.
Wow.
And so throughout all these years, he sold his publishing company, and throughout all these years, he had so much information in his head. And he wrote this musical. It's his music too, which is really great. And so he talks and kind of gives a fact, and then the music plays, and there's dancers and background singers and stuff. But when we first met him, the thing he said that it blew my mind, and I thought, oh, this is going to be huge. He said, he goes, look at me. I'm alive. For all intents and purposes, I'm talking to you. You're talking to me. We're both alive. He goes, but everything that makes us up is not. Oxygen, phosphorus, and he goes through all, none of that is alive, but we are alive. To me, of course, that gives credence to the soul. Now, he's a scientist, so I did not say that. But,
You could.
but so
Throw it
since,
in.
yeah, I actually did. You know me. I can't get it. But so it's that. And then it's music, and it just, and at some point he connects gravity to connection and love. So it's hard to describe, but it's quite mind-blowing.
And so if people are in New York right now,
yes.
When does it begin?
It's playing at the Signature Theater. They start previews tomorrow for 2 weeks, and then it premieres on the 25th. Let me make sure of that. And it's called Emergence at the Signature Theater. So yeah, premieres on October 25th. So please go see it. I think this is going to be word of mouth, since he's someone that, has never gone out there and done it, but he's amazing. So I'm going to be going back and forth. I'm going to be bi-coastal for a while.
Shirley,
I know.
You might want to stop in the Midwest. Maybe you could just drop in here.
Yeah, maybe on my way back one time, I'll come and visit you.
I would think that would be great. Well, I'm so excited for Bob, and I'm really excited for you to be able to be bi-coastal and have that, a different part of your life, which is what life is about. I mean, doing different things.
Yeah. Well, when we look at things and we can see the I don't know, we can say the positive side of COVID. Now, us therapists know that we can do Zoom sessions. And while I do prefer the face-to-face, while I'm here, I can continue my practice and do Zoom sessions. And then when I'm back, I can see the people that I already see face-to-face in my office.
That's wonderful. Wow.
That made it very convenient, to be able to do this. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do this. So,
No, I love that. And, before I forget too, if anybody is looking for a therapist in the New York area, and I'm not sure what New York is reciprocal with as far as licensing. But Renee, would you put up, there's a wonderful therapist named Elizabeth Scott, and she's taking new clients now, and she's spiritual and psychological. She's a psychotherapist, but understands spirituality and is very spiritual. And a lot of people that are having, that are waking up these days need a therapist. I mean, you are always so wonderful, Shirley, because you supported me as I was a medium first. You always supported me with that work. And then you were the first one. I mean, who would, if anybody even said anything about how was it that I was a therapist and a medium, you would go in and blast them away.
Oh, you know me.
No, it was great. It was
you're
fighting my own battle for me.
I do not keep quiet. I'm like, Kellee,
really
you put yourself out there. I see what you do. The healing that it brings people. I don't care. And you know me, my dad's an engineer.
And by the way, wait a minute. I have to say your dad just passed away. Has it been a week even, Shirley?
Almost 2.
2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I have to tell you, Kellee, it was so peaceful because of everything that I've learned from you.
Oh.
It was so peaceful. I'm going to share this real quick just to show everyone that we can all make mistakes and we can all learn. He taught me. We used to call him the cheese because as an engineer, he wasn't very emotional. He was just, there's an expression in Spanish, if you're from Argentina, that when someone is just a cheese, it's kind of like they're a chunk of, they just kind of sit there, right? So, and towards the end of his life, he became very religious. And I do a lot of interviews for adults that were molested by religious priests and rabbis. And so I have a huge aversion to organized religion just because of the pain that I, from my end of what I hear. And so they called and they said, well, they called my sister, hospice, said, do you want a pastor to come? And she said, yes. And I was so angry because all I can think, me, I get stuck on things. All I can think about is that connection of how some people take advantage when they're, people of God and they shouldn't. And my dad was so afraid of death. He was fighting it. And I kept just talking to him and nothing was helping. He heard this man's voice and the words that he was saying about God and Jesus. And he listened to a song. All of a sudden he calmed. He opened his eyes wide. His breathing started to slow down. So we all came around him. I was rubbing his head. My sister was holding his hand. My daughter was holding his other hand. And I could tell he felt safe. He felt safe and he passed in the most beautiful way. His breathing just slowed until he took his last breath.
Wow.
And he taught me a lesson. I apologized to my sister and I said, I am so sorry. I need to be so much more respectful for what everyone believes, even
Absolutely,
if,
Shirley.
Yeah.
You
So
have to,
I was
whatever
wrong.
their belief system is, that's what you go. Didn't I teach you this as a therapist?
But you know,
or was it a
you
spiritualist?
know me. I get stuck on stuff, and I get
That's
stuck on it just because of the pain that it brings. You know, when I interview that, I don't want to get into that piece, but hey, I was taught a lesson. The cheese gave me a lesson on his way out.
Well,
So I
and
have to
that's-
thank him for that.
I always say, even to the last breath is very important because the soul can learn, you can learn.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about my mom in her last breath. I mean, honest to God, I did. It was
Yeah.
that important that I was
Yeah.
there. I actually put that in my book because it was so, to me, such an important moment for me. In fact, you were there with me when my mom passed.
Yeah. I was
You
there.
know, I mean, that was
Yeah.
unbelievable. So it's not
is,
easy losing a parent, is it?
No, it's not.
Whether you like them or whether you don't like them.
Because they feel that, you know, they kind of represent like a metaphor for your anger. You know, again, even if they were, you know, kind or unkind, you know.
It could be a metaphor for your anger. That's the way it is.
But truly a lesson to everyone that you can always learn something, and it's so important to own your mistakes. You know, it actually makes you more human.
Yes, it
in
does.
people's eyes to own. And boy, did I learn a lesson.
Compassionate.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, compassion is everything.
Yeah.
I have to answer this. Beth Glomsky says, Kellee and Dr. Shirley, is all the chaos of October so far, is this part of the reason why there's an odd feeling and dreams, like I want to stay away from people? Yes. It's going to create some energy feelings in you and in everybody. Whether I was feeling that you might want to really connect with somebody, or you might really not want to. Depends on where your anxiety goes, or where. But everybody should pay attention to their dreams too for right now, because if you might be picking up fear, you just might there's going to feel like there's a lot of fear on the planet.
Yeah, and understandably so.
Understandably so. You know, Eric. Can you guys tell us the difference between trauma therapy and so-called regular therapy or acceptance therapy? I'm in acceptance therapy, but I'm quite miserable. Shirley, I have never heard of acceptance therapy.
I've never heard of acceptance therapy. And acceptance therapy may be referring to kind of accepting what happened or where you're at. Or, however, the trauma therapy that I'm trained in works with the body. It's somatic. So you work with the body because that's where all the trauma is stuck, in that fight or flight energy that never got to be released. Because when we're kids, we can't fight back if a parent is being abusive, or if we're living in chaos, and we can't take off running, because where are we going to go?
So let me ask you this, Shirley. If he's talking about acceptance therapy, maybe he's still got so much inside that why would you accept?
Exactly. Because
would it have so much, what I'm thinking, anger or whatever?
Yeah, right? Yes, exactly it. Because I think all of our goals is to accept and be able to move forward in life, right? However, in order to accept what happened to us, we have to also validate how we felt when we were that little kid, and the anger and the rage of a parent not taking care of us in the way that they should have, right? And it's not about blaming parents, but the brain develops between 0 and 6. And who are you mostly with? Your caregivers, right? So it's not about blame at all. It's to understand. And it's an important process to do, is to get in touch with your own sadness, your own disappointment, your own anger, which is life force energy, and process that in the way that I've been trained to do it, is through the body. So you notice if there's an impulse to hit. And so we use a lot of imagination, because the primitive part of the brain doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. So like when I was going through this therapy, my therapist said, what are you noticing in your body? And I remember noticing a volcano exploding. And that, of course, was rage. So I just sat with it and sat with it and sat with it. And then it started to dissipate.
Right.
And that's how you work with trauma. And I think maybe, Eric, what you're referring to as regular therapy is talk therapy, which is wonderful, because it's important to understand how we got to where we are, and how maybe these misattunements or these traumas affect us in our current life. patterns with the people that we date, that kind of thing. However, it has its limitations because it doesn't heal the trauma. So it's an important part of the process. But trauma therapy, which I would equate with somatic therapy, is healing the trauma from inside your body. So then you can accept,
I never thought that talking therapy was enough.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand where things came from, but then what do you do with it? That's the limit that it has.
Right. So this is a question from Maria Anastasia. She said, what can I tell myself that will stay to not get into victimized depression, anxiety? I'm not been able to reimagine through love my needs and support. So, I mean, basically, I think she's talking about victim mentality, basically.
Well, if we view ourselves, when we're kids, we are victims. Not a victim identity, but we are victims of our environment. We just are. And hopefully we had loving parents that maybe could admit to mistakes and apologize and that kind of thing. And unfortunately, many of us weren't so lucky and grew up in very traumatic families. So we continue, anxiety is a fear, is a pervasive fear, and when were brought into a traumatic or a chaotic childhood, we were a victim, and the seed that gets planted is the world is not a safe place. And so as adults, that anxiety is about not feeling safe.
But how do you break the pattern from being a victim? Because I know so many people that walk around with that victim consciousness.
Yeah, part of it is healing that inner child, that little kid that was a victim of the chaos around him or her.
So let's talk about inner child work. How does somebody go about that?
John Bradshaw, I think, is the original psychologist that coined that term. Okay. And so you can go on YouTube and he's passed on now, but you can go on YouTube and hear his talks. He has wonderful books that he wrote about that. And it's about really tuning into that little kid that's still inside of all of us. And imagining in the somatic work, I would say, okay, imagine you as the adult is giving that child what she or he needed. Was it held? Was it a hug? Was it, I'm so sorry, life feels so scary? And imagine giving that little kid in you that, and notice how your body responds. And many times when I'm doing this with my clients, I see it. The shoulders relax.
Yeah.
There's more breathing room. They'll share with me, I feel more space in my chest. Right. So that's how we start to heal.
So along that lane, when we talk about trauma work, Shirley, what happens when there's a moment in your mind that all of a sudden you get angry, or you kind of have to look back at the traumas in your life, or like something has triggered a trauma.
Yeah.
Do you look back at would that be a time to think, wait a minute, why am I so angry about this?
Yes. The emotion of anger, there's nothing wrong with the emotion of anger. And in fact, it's life force energy. If we didn't get angry at someone coming at us, we wouldn't have the impulse to fight back, and the species wouldn't have survived. So it's a very important emotion that we get scared of, because maybe when we lived, we grew up with a very angry parent, then anger becomes very scary. And it's the behavior of anger that gets us into trouble, not the emotion. So along to what you're saying, Kellee, is when we feel angry, to notice it. The neuroscientists have a term, name it to tame it. Just naming, oh my God, I feel so angry right now. That in and of itself could help it dissipate. It's almost like emotions just want to be validated. Instead
I like that.
Yeah, instead of repressed and pushed down because we don't know what to do with it.
So then the same could be said for victim mentality. If you could slow it down enough to think, wait a minute, what am I doing? Am I creating something that's nothing?
Right. And anytime we have what seems to be a reaction or a feeling that's a little bit more than what the situation called for, I hate to call them an overreaction, because it's real. You're feeling it. But know that you maybe got triggered about something that you haven't fully healed in the past. I have this example in my book where I was at a restaurant, and I specifically said how I wanted my eggs to be cooked, and I can't stand them when they're gooey and I broke into it. It was gooey. So I sent it back, broke into it. It was still kind of crystallized. It wasn't. And I noticed an anger inside of me and I wanted to yell at the waitress like land blaster. And so I caught myself, and I was doing my somatic therapy work. I was reading some somatic articles at the time. I was sitting at a coffee shop, and so I took it in. I didn't respond to her. I took it in. And again, feeling that volcano, and all of a sudden, when I was just noticing what was inside of me, there was an image that appeared of me as a little kid not being heard. So it triggered me not being heard. And that's why I felt so. And so I imagined, doing what I wanted to do. And I felt the energy coming, through my arms and stuff, because I wanted to punch her because she wasn't hearing me. Right.
But the fact that you could get to that you hadn't been heard. As
the image came to my mind. I mean, I was, my parents, of course, loved me very much, but there was not a lot of interaction. So I was left alone a lot. Not alone like a latchkey kid. They were home, but not interacting. Mm-hmm. And so my trigger is not feeling heard. And an image of me as a little kid being alone and needing so much and not getting that response. Mm. And that's what had been triggered. So I love what you said, Kellee, if you slow things down and you tune into the body, more often than not, I don't want to say every time, but many times, you'll clue into what just triggered you.
And it's funny because I have always gone, 100 miles an hour, but as I'm getting older, I like to go slower now.
Yeah.
And I actually see things in a different way when you slow down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that is almost kind of like the foundation of somatic therapies is slowing down and tuning in.
I love that.
Yeah.
So Renee Hounsel says, this is a great question. How do we approach integrating our spiritual practice alongside somatic therapy? Is it more healing to bring the focus to one aspect of healing before the other?
Well, and I have to thank you, Kellee, because of, your guidance and broadening my spiritual views. I've had a lot of people that really thank me for having a spiritual skew in the way that I practice. And I credit that all to you.
And Shirley, I credit so much to you because you have a left brain.
Love each other. Wow, oh my God.
How great is this? Your left brain. It works so well.
It makes sense or it doesn't make sense.
Exactly. It just cracked me up.
But I find that it's important to do both. The somatic therapy heals the trauma because in this lifetime we're human. So the somatic therapy can heal the trauma that you endured, either a shock, one-time trauma if you were assaulted as an adult or something, or had a really bad car accident, that can cause trauma because it's shocks to the nervous system. Yeah. Or of course, childhood trauma. And also the spiritual practice can go hand in hand with we're all on a journey and everything happens for a reason.
And it goes along, Renee, it goes with compassion. The answer there is compassion, because you can have your somatic therapy with deep compassion for what you have gone through.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that compassion is what heals everybody.
Absolutely. And self-compassion heals us.
Absolutely has to be self-compassion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and compassion to others. I mean, we get to the point where we can then, once we've validated our own feelings when a parent misstepped, we can also then have compassion for them. That doesn't mean we're not going to have an emotion. Right. If they say something stupid or,
But it might not just be a parent, Shirley. It could be an ex-husband, a spouse.
Oh, it could be anybody. Absolutely.
Anybody. So when you say that, it could be anybody.
Yeah.
That's done harm.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, nobody's born that way. It's all about experiences, and we carry some things over, from in our soul.
Go ahead, say it. Past lives.
Past lives. Yeah.
Go ahead, say it. You're in a good place for that.
Yeah. Right. I love that. So we can carry some things over, but it is important to heal that part of us and then also bring spirituality. And I think it's doing both.
It has to be both. I love it.
Yeah. Some people go the spiritual route, but they haven't healed their trauma.
Right.
And we call them spiritual bypassers. And I can feel it. They're like floating up here and they're not grounded.
How many times have you seen patients like that? Yeah. Where you have to go, oh, please, come here, get grounded. Come on.
Because we're human in this lifetime. We have to heal our trauma. We have to.
Oh, yeah. I can't do the floating butterfly thing. I can't.
Well, I never feel anger. I'm above feeling anger.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It's life force energy. Yeah. The anger doesn't have to be destructive. but it's so important to acknowledge it.
Totally.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what this
Yeah.
period of time is
Yeah.
good for, ultimately.
Mm.
Lisa Marshall Maitland, she says, I've been working on sitting with my feelings and fear. It's not as scary as it seems. Good for you, Lisa. Not as
That's
scary as it
wonderful.
seems.
Because what we've noticed, and what Dr. Peter Levine, who's created
You
somatic
work with
experience-
Dr. Peter Levine.
Yeah, who created this type of therapy. What happens is when we have a big emotion, we tend to, it can become so scary that we, right at the top of it, that's when we repress it, either through drugs, alcohol, distraction, anything. And if we just waited long enough, we start to notice the shift and that the emotion starts to dissipate. So if you wait long enough, just exactly what she's saying, your nervous system and your mind get to experience that. And so then emotions become a teeny bit less scary next time around.
Right.
Yeah, we can sit with them.
Right. Renee, can you put that back up, please? Renee, you had that one up there, Renee, but now it's no longer there. I don't know where it went. It was there and it wasn't. Okay. Yvonne Brubaker says, my anxiety has been so bad that I have not been to a grocery store for 5 years. What would you say to somebody if they came to you as a patient?
Well, I would begin to explore, the anxiety and see if there was, see what may be underneath that anxiety to heal that wound. And then the anxiety starts to dissipate on its own. Anxiety is about not feeling safe. The world does not feel safe. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Robin Young Bayer says, healing the inner child was pivotal, she said, for my spiritual development. I find that they go hand in hand, Robin.
Yeah.
That's really great. Okay. Enthusiastic impressionist. I love that. Jennifer Penn. How do you cope with fear? I was told that if we live in fear, with everything that's going on in the physical world today, we will stay on the hamster wheel and not move forward. Correct. I would agree with that. Absolutely. Absolutely. You cannot live in fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easier said than done, but you can't.
Right. Yeah. Again, I would, and it may be difficult to do it on your own initially. So I would find a somatic therapist that you can work with, to what brings you fear and to sit with it. Notice your body. Where do you notice the fear? What's the sensation of fear? Is it a clenching in your stomach? Is it a tightness in your chest? And you notice the edges of it. Notice if it has a color. Notice if it has a shape. Noticing the edges, and you start to notice that it starts to shift. Just like the woman before that said, that it's not as scary to sit with it anymore.
Right. Oh, I love that.
That's how you start to, because it's not so much coping with fear necessarily, but working with what caused the fear in the first place, healing that wound, and then all of a sudden the fear starts to dissipate.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So this is a good one. This is from Judy McInnes Legacy. She says, as a grandparent caring for a grandchild with emotional trauma, what's the best course of action in helping her now as a preteen? Shirley? So a grandparent caring for a grandchild.
Yeah. I don't work with kids. However, I would find I would find a somatic therapist so they can learn how to first identify what they're feeling. I had to, because I was so shut down, I literally had to get one of those posters of emotions where it's the different faces and the different emotion underneath to kind of,
which is great for a preteen, actually.
Exactly.
Because they may not know what their emotions are. They wouldn't have a clue. I'm just pissed off. Oh, okay.
I started to learn, it was almost like paint by number for me. I started to learn, well, I'm not sure how I'm feeling, but my chest feels a little heavy. Oh, maybe that's sadness. Maybe I'm feeling sadness. That's how I had to learn, because I had shut them down. So I would, with somatic therapy, you can probably go YouTube and look for videos that can show her maybe how to start to recognize her emotions, how to deal with when there is a lot of anger or big emotions that come.
Preteens, you have to navigate that one, and that's a great idea. What you suggest.
And you're giving her or him, you're giving your grandchild a huge gift, because teaching someone how to navigate through their emotions is a lifelong gift.
Yes.
And many times it's just validating. It's just validating an emotion.
I think grandparents are so important for children.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
I
Maybe,
love them.
Renee, you can put, I know you're very important to your grandkids.
I love them.
They're so cute. Renee, maybe you can put the somatic experiencing website on. So
It's called traumahealing.org. Is that the one you're talking about, Shirley?
Yes. I don't know if they changed the name.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's still okay. Traumahealing.org. And you can find a practitioner in your area, and it's worldwide. So
for maybe even for children or preteen.
Yeah. And it'll, in the description of the practitioners, it'll say if they work with kids.
Okay. Wow. Tony Coppin says, can trauma anxiety be with permanent illness? So if you have permanent illness, trauma anxiety, I would think so.
I would think so too.
Yeah. Have you worked with that, Shirley, with somebody who's got a permanent illness and they've got trauma around that and which has created a lot of anxiety?
No, because, anxiety is really fear of death. I mean, if we break it down, it's fear, and it's fear of death. I had this woman who came in who had terminal cancer, and I would just hold her. I would sit by her, and I would put one hand on her back, which is support, and the other hand in the front, which is protection. And I would just do that, or I would stand behind her and put my hands on her shoulders for, again, support. And you check in if here or like this, what feels more comfortable, where your hands go. And I mean, that's it. There's nothing that you can do other than maybe get more information on life after death. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has wonderful books that help with that fear. Well, life after death is an excellent one.
It's an excellent, and there are a lot of wonderful. James has got
James. I mean, what am I even saying? James on Prague has some wonderful. Yeah. So I would inform, myself if there was a fear of, anxiety with terminal illness, it might be a fear of death. I would learn everything that I could, and also just,
and get support. Support anybody that you can find that's a good support system for you.
Absolutely.
Eileen Groom says, does trauma pass into the next generation? Yes. It's too bad I wanted to have Carrie on tonight too.
I know, because she works with intergenerational trauma.
Yes, generational trauma. And the answer is yes, it does. I mean, if one person does it, all it takes is one person to start to break that cycle, right, Shirley? If you are that one person, if there's so much trauma in the family and somebody steps in and says, I'm going to break this up, and really starts dealing with all the different traumas, it's amazing how that can change the legacy of it.
Yeah. Many times they're considered the black sheep of the family because they're changing the system.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so true.
They did a study with rats where, the parent rat, right, got, I think, shocked when they smelled a smell. I think it was like that, right? And 5 generations later, up until the 5th generation of rats from that original one would their heart rate would go up, and they would get stressed out when they would infuse the cages with that smell.
That's wild. That's wild. I believe it. I totally believe it. Yeah. Okay, so this is a good one. This is from Barbara Mulligan Buffing. She said, what if we don't know what the trigger is? She said, I don't remember my childhood, but I know things happened. My dad beat my mom. I don't remember it, but I've been told.
You will know what your trigger is when you notice, again, a reaction that's a little bit more than what the situation calls for. Like, I had no clue why I would always react when my order was wrong, and I was very specific about it until
only that. Wait, not only that, Shirley, I was with you once when they were playing music on a cruise ship.
Oh,
is it all right if I tell the story?
Yes.
I actually watched this. So Shirley came in. We were on a cruise. We were with James, actually. I don't remember where we were.
Yeah.
And Shirley and I were sharing a room.
When you were with James.
And Shirley and I were sharing a room, and Shirley comes in and she's so upset. And I said, what are you so upset about? And you said, I don't want to talk about it. I said, what did my sister do? I just assumed it was my sister must have done something. I said, what happened? And you said, I don't want to talk about it. I said, Shirley, please, for God's sakes, why are you so upset? I'm not going anywhere. You're going to tell me. And you said they stopped playing the music that I liked.
It was Copacabana by Barry Manilow. I had
requested a real thing that happened.
Hey, I'm not embarrassed to tell this story.
I was was like,
and
what?
I had requested that they started playing and they stopped it in the middle. And it was, again, not feeling heard, feeling ignored, feeling like we don't
Exactly. But
care
you
about
got
you.
triggered from that.
So anything can trigger us. And if we wait, if we tune in and we wait long enough, the reason will show up, even if you don't remember your childhood, because I don't remember my childhood either.
Yeah.
But I did get that scene, that flash of me being alone, yearning, needing, and nobody there. That let me understand that it was, not being heard was my trigger.
Yeah, no. And then Beth Glonsky says, wow, just wow. Dr. Shirley just made me realize that not being heard, not being acknowledged is part of what my dreams and my anger have been about in the past week, making me think to stay away.
Oh, wow. Wow. And Beth, what clues you into, which one of my teachers told me once, your favorite movie, the lyrics to your favorite songs. And I remember going, oh, and my favorite movie is The Notebook. And because at the end, when he goes every day to read her journals, just so she can come back just for a second, so he can have that connection with her. I always thought no one can ever love me like that. And I would sob at that. And so when it was Dr. Stan Tatkin, when he said that, you'll learn a lot about yourself and your deep, because I always thought, I don't need a boyfriend. I don't want a boyfriend. I'm fine. Right. But that's the counter, the way that I kept myself safe. And when I realized that, wait a minute, The Notebook is my favorite movie. Oh my God. There was a lot.
I remember when you told me that, and I was like, what?
Yeah. And my favorite songs, the sappiest love songs ever.
Oh, it's Barry Manilow, anything, actually.
God, yeah.
I actually saw before we got on that he's going to be playing in New York, and I was like, oh my God,
I saw that too.
Oh, you saw
in
it.
April.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to be going to Palm Springs in
Right.
December because he's doing his holiday concerts. He does them every 2 years, 5 nights. All the money goes to charity because he's wonderful.
I know a lot of people that would disagree with that, but it's okay. It's
I
okay.
don't want to hear it.
I know you don't, and I don't want to burst anybody's bubble.
Thank you.
Because that's not what I'm about. Susie Everett says, I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety. I'm diagnosed with breast cancer, and there's so much unknown. Oh, Susie, join a group, Susie. If you can find a group, a cancer group for it's amazing.
Yeah.
You can find them online. You can find them in wherever you live. It's helped so many people that I know with cancer.
Yeah. Because that is real fear. How can you not feel anxiety when you have been diagnosed with cancer? And what happens sometimes is we tend to isolate when we hear news like that, which is why what you're saying, Kellee, is right on. A support group so you don't feel alone. And
absolutely.
You're with people who don't just empathize with you, but they know what you're going through because they're going through it too.
Right. And it's interesting because when you start to share those fears and everything, it can actually be really supportive. It can be really amazing.
Yeah. It can be life-changing.
Life-changing. Gosh, so true.
Yeah.
Anthony Lewis says, how do you tell the difference from a vision of the future and dream time? Sometimes you can, Anthony. I see them both. And my sister and I actually just had a conversation about this. She saw something and she said to me, is that a vision or was that a dream? I said, that was a vision. I can usually tell the difference.
How can you tell the difference?
Depending on what it is. Now, sometimes it just might be, dreams are really interesting because they can be what you're working on, what needs to, what you don't want to see. But in certain incidences, it's definitely a vision, something different. I can always just tell.
It'll come through a dream.
Yeah, it comes. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Got it.
So again, this is from Enthusiastic Impressionist, Jennifer Penn. She said, I am a caregiver for my husband who was in the Vietnam War. And I live with anxiety most days, and he has Parkinson's disease. That's not an easy one because, that's a real, sometimes we'll say that anxiety, is it real or is it imagined or whatever? This is a real one. It's right, Shirley? That would be a real one.
Yeah. Well, anxiety, when we have anxiety, when something that would be anxiety producing isn't happening, then it's just as real. It's just maybe coming from having had a chaotic childhood or not feeling safe when you were a kid.
Right.
This, however, is she's going through things that would cause anxiety.
Of course.
So it's natural
The
to feel
unknown.
that.
Again, the
Right.
unknown.
Right.
You know?
And if the anxiety then gets, stops you from being able to live, then that's when, of course, I would suggest getting help with it.
And really learning deep meditation, because deep meditation slows your brain down enough. It slows you down that you can handle a lot. I mean, I meditate every day. I've been meditating every day for 20 something years at this point. And it's very, very important, I feel. So Anne Margaret, remember Anne Margaret? Anne Margaret says, just saw the movie tonight, Carlos Santana. I love Carlos Santana. He's such a nice guy. He admitted to abuse as a youngster and how he refused to have victim mentality and focused on, I am not that. Right on. That's good to thank you for that, because I appreciate that. Char Demuke says, so here's an interesting fear. My dad starved himself to death when I was 15.
Oh my.
Now I've heard of women doing it. I have not heard of men doing that. That's fascinating. A lot of personality disorders that have done that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've ever heard of male, Shirley. I have been so afraid of dying that way that I became obese. I recently had to not eat to do a colon cleanse for 2 days before the surgery. Not only did I not die, but I felt great. Now I'm eating fruits, vegetables, and fish, feeling great. Wow. Who knew that a colon cleanse for surgery would turn that around?
Yeah.
Char, that is a wild story. I have to digest that one.
And thank you for sharing that. It's amazing how when we make associations in the brain, how that can affect us and really guide our life. So that's part of what working somatically does. It helps you uncouple two things that are not associated with each other, that are separate, that have been associated. Like for you, dad starving to death and the trauma of that, to never wanting to, to be so afraid of death that you went the other way. Yeah.
Truly. Boy. Char, I'm going to be thinking about that one. That is a big one right there. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're feeling great. It's amazing how that turned it around. Okay, Shady says, one of my clients said that she read that she has the DNA trauma passed down because her parents were Holocaust survivors. She said it can go 3 generations. 100%, Shady.
Yeah.
100%, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it could, 100%. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, Charmaine Vigske says, trauma from car accidents. Oh, Shirley, I actually remember this story. This is an unbelievable one. And I meant to share this one with you when I heard about it the first time from Char. She said, Charmaine, she said, my husband and I were hit by a tree going 60 miles an hour, and they were able to walk away, Shirley. A tree fell on them.
Oh,
a giant tree, like a redwood, fell on them.
Wow.
Knocked them, and somehow, and they were going 60 miles an hour, just driving in the,
and a tree just happened at the
at that exact moment. So I remember talking to her about this, and she said she experienced a blackout type feeling. They thought they were shot. I mean, what else would you think? I guess she said we didn't know. She said, I know a destiny point in life, and we are still here. It's definitely a destiny point. We have such different ways of dealing and learning from it. And she says she's very open to it, and I don't know if her husband is. Probably not. I mean, everybody has their own way of dealing with things. But that would be a cause for trauma therapy, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's a shock to the system. Anything that overwhelms the nervous system can cause trauma, and trauma is how we perceive it, how we react to it, how the body reacts to it. So that, that's life and death. And so that can really traumatize a person. And so working with that, I've worked with a lot of accident victims. In fact, there's a great book, Renee, if you want to bring it up, by Dr. Lawrence Heller, Heller, and Dr. Aileen Lapierre. They both wrote it, and it's exactly about car accidents and healing the shock trauma of car accidents. Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully Renee can find that, because that would be a great one if you can find that for us to post. Jean Palkey says, Dr. Shirley, can you talk about grief and somatic therapy? Now, Jean is also, she does, she's a a spiritual, she's a coach, but she does all kinds of coaching for grief and she's taking a somatic class. So talk about both.
Wonderful. You know, again, it's the key to somatic therapy is slowing things down and see how you feel. You know, it actually still happened when my father passed away. You know, we were dealing with stuff, so I was on it, and I actually had to take a moment and go, wait a minute, but how do I feel? Because
I kept asking you,
right?
I know,
and because I would cry, and so that let me know that I'm feeling something, but I'm not fully, in touch with it. So I just sat with it. I slowed things down and I sat with it, and what helped me prompt it, I brought in memories of my dad and that kind of thing. And so I was able to then feel the grief. And, that's part of the process of grieving. One of my clients once said, it was so smart. And we all kind of know this, but it's a great reminder. She goes, when someone that we love passes on, she goes, we never stop grieving. We just feel it less often. And that is so true.
Extremely true, Shirley.
Yeah.
This is a good one. This is from Gail Jean. She said, I was told the reason why I have Crohn's disease is because I swallow my anger. I never express my anger because of my parents fighting all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. They have shown studies that a lot of the immune disorders, diabetes even, but definitely the immune disorders like Crohn's disease, even Parkinson's, can be due to unhealed trauma. And Crohn's disease affects the stomach and the gut. And that is where, if there's a lot of anger, that's what we're going to suppress. And it's more often than not, we feel it there. And so it starts to disrupt the whole digestive system. So if there might be a genetic predisposition for that or something, why do some people develop Crohn's and some people don't, that aren't that comfortable with their own anger? Who knows? But yes, I would explore that. And
I love this comment here. This is from Eileen Groom. She says, I adore the honesty that you share with your vulnerability, Shirley. It's a great teacher. I think that's so true. You've always been that way, which I just love. You've never had a problem. Even when a patient would say something to you, you'd be like, okay. I mean, you can handle a lot from things. I'm always amazed and always.
You taught me when I would hang out with you and James about this is a school and we're learning. And I never want to be a person. I may not be aware if I'm doing something hurtful, but I never want to be a person that can't, when it's pointed out, that can't reflect on it and own it.
Right.
Yeah.
You've been always really, really good. And Margaret says, Shirley, do you recommend any great books on somatic healing, like Dr. Gabor Mate or Peter Levine? What books?
Well, there is a wonderful documentary called The Wisdom of Trauma.
Oh, it's so
and
good.
That is incredible. It really, and it's Dr. Gabor Mate. It really describes, and he was very well known for addictions. And even the way he describes addiction, it's a rational response to unbearable feelings.
Oh,
and it is, if we look at it that way.
So true.
We can't just get rid of the addiction because the person then is going to use something else to suppress whatever they're not trying to feel. Right. Books by Dr. Peter Levine. He wrote a wonderful book on trauma and memory, or one of his latest books. Waking the Tiger was one of his first books. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk wrote a book on The Body Keeps the Score. I think it's been like on the New York bestseller list for I don't know how many years now. That it all explains the neurobiology of trauma, how the body, mind and body, nervous system gets affected with trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I think that's so great, Shirley. This has been wonderful. I mean,
oh my God,
I told you it goes so fast. I don't even know it. We kind of got as much in as we could.
Oh my God! I always have so much fun with you.
I always love being with you. And I'm grateful for. Thank you, Renee. I'm grateful to have Shirley on tonight, and grateful for everybody to watch us tonight. And then next Monday, I have. Do you remember? I have Patrice Bissot. Remember Patrice, the image consultant?
Yes,
he's gonna be my co-host next week, and you guys will love him.
Yeah,
he is something else, and he does. It's like a spiritual way of doing images of yourself, and it's just extraordinary. I think you guys will love him. And that's next week, and then join me Thursday night for my Ask Me Anything, and we'll be moving more into probably more of a spiritual talk in those for Thursday. And if you are in the New York area, Shirley, what's the name of Bob's
Oh,
play?
it's called Emergence, and it is at the Signature Theater. Come watch it. It really is a mind blower.
I can't wait. I'm going to go see it.
Yeah, I'm going to be there many nights too, watching it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, everybody. I'll see you
All
Thursday night, and I'll see you next Monday.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Shirley.
Love you, Kellee.
Love you too, honey.
Bye.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now and Beyond, featuring spiritual medium and master teacher James Van Praagh and spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.
That was great. Maybe we changed some lives.
And maybe opened up some minds.
Which way do I turn?
Right. I mean left.